And we are live. A very good, warm welcome this evening to live instant match reaction between Coventry and Huddersfield Town. I'm on the other side of the duties for this evening as Brownie and Chris. I think I probably both can't be bothered. I think that's the truth of the matter, isn't it, Steve?
But I hope not.
Probably a little bit late in the evening. I'm very happy to welcome our Huddersfield Town rep, Stephen Downs. Thank you for joining us, Steve.
And no problem.
It's going to be very much over to you tonight as we kind of talk all things Huddersfield, which is, like I say, a bit of a change for me.
Yeah. Well, I think you've had the joys of watching the game tonight. We've got Ellen Road in the background, but it wasn't played at Ellen Road. It was played at the Coventry City Stadium. I always want to call it the Rico Arena, but it's not named that now, is it?
It's one of them, innit? We just carry on keeping it the old name. It'd be worse. We could call it the Six Fields because that's where they played for a number of years, wasn't it?
Yeah, or St Andrews.
St Andrews, yeah.
But yeah, it was a Darren Moore's first game in charge. He made 4 changes to the lineup. I think he went, it was 3-5-2, which was his formation at Sheffield Wednesday. And then, the 4 changes he made were quite defensive in a sense. He had Jackson and Headley being the fullbacks, and Nakayama, Pearson, and Hellick as the centre-backs. The midfield 3 were Hogg, Wiles, and Radone, with Bergzorg and Karoma up front. First half, Coventry definitely with a better side, really. Bergzorg and Karoma only had 14 touches of the ball each.
Yeah, between them.
Between them, sorry. Yeah. By the time it came to like the 35th, 40th minute. So, we didn't really have a lot of attacking threat at all, really. We had the lowest XG at halftime there's been in the championship so far. Although, what the hell does XG mean? It doesn't really count. It doesn't really count for much when you look at the result in the end. But then second half, we came out a lot more positive. I thought, played Coventry higher up the pitch, which is what we needed to do. Sorba came off the bench and made a really good impact. And then, last dying seconds, it's Darren Moore loves a late goal, and he's got one football. Nick out Hellick.
Well, I mean, let's take it back to kind of the start of the game, obviously. Was you expecting changes after? Because I think you guys have not played for like 10 days, right? Since last weekend?
9 days. No, Stoke. We played Stoke midweek.
Stoke midweek, sorry. That was the last game, 2-2 draw at home, right? I believe.
Yeah. Warnock's last game, yeah.
Warnock's last game. So, given that you obviously had a little time in between the 2 games, were you expecting a few changes? Not a lot of changes? Like, I know Darren Moore had a couple of days in the building in training, being able to see the lads and whatnot. So, to see 4 changes, I think Hogg coming straight back in would probably be expected. I think if Hogg's available, he plays. He's one of them kind of players. He kind of epitomises Huddersfield. So, I would definitely expect to see him in. But I was a bit surprised to see Jackson play at right back, given that he's left-footed. Yeah. What were you kind of thought when you saw the team lineup? Was it what you expected?
It was expected in terms of the formation, because we know that's what Darren's played at, particularly at Sheffield Wednesday, but he has played that at Doncaster and West Brom as well. So I wasn't shocked at the formation. The Sky commentators, Keith Andrews, who doesn't know what he's on about with any club. It don't matter who he presents. He's just an absolute wally. He went, Huddersfield haven't played a 3-5-2. We played a 3-5-2 in most of Warnock's games, you idiot. Yeah. So anyway, the thing is, because that's the way Moore plays, it wasn't like a massive change in style, the formation at least. I thought he might play Thomas instead of Jackson, but he wanted to be more defensive. And I kind of get it. His first game, he wants to be cagey, but away from home against a very good Coventry side that was last year, although they've had big changes themselves. So the changes, I wasn't disappointed in the changes, but the first half sort of bared out where, it was cagey. We didn't have a lot of chances. Well, we didn't really have any chances. And he really had to change it at half time. And I was pleased that although he didn't change at half time, we did in terms of the tactics.
Yeah.
We played Coventry further up the pitch. We got more in and amongst them, and that's what pleased me. 4 changes is big. Hoggy, like you say, had to come back in. He's the cement of the team, really. He's kind of like, in terms of for you guys, I suppose. Maybe Cooper in the past and
right.
And players like that you would expect to be on the team sheet first of all. Hoggy's kind of like that for us. Gives us that stable base because once when Hoggy's in the team, Radoni and Wiles can move further forward.
It reads a game well, doesn't he, as well, Hog?
Well, the thing is, neither of those players have to then think about defending in terms of in the middle of the pitch when the play is congested. They don't have to think, right, well, I can't make that forward movement to make in space because I've got to get back to cover. Where Hoggy just instantly does that. He's like there, bang, he makes a tackle, gets the ball out of play or whatever. So I was pleased that Hoggy was back in. I thought Pearson was my man of the match, by the way, throughout the game, although the goal was unfortunate. And he maybe should have made a tackle for the goal, but Jackson's pass back was not great. I've watched Jackson since the academy. He's a tenacious player. He's not the most quality player, but he puts full effort in and really tries hard for the team. I don't know, with this 3-year plan we've got to get to the Premier League, whether Jackson is the type of fullback that you're going to be relying on. I'm not so sure, but all credit to him. Although he made the mistake, in passing it back, and it was a poor pass back, he at least got his head up and cracked on and tried to make a difference in the second half for sure.
It's always the trouble, I think, when you play an unnatural fullback on one side than the other. So I don't think he would have done that if he'd have been in a position at left back. But given that he was in that position at right back, he wanted to take the pass on his stronger foot. So then he played a no-look pass over his shoulder into a dangerous area. And I think you see that a lot when you're playing a fullback on the unnatural side. Like, I think a lot of people that don't understand football are very quick to just say, well, it's fullback on the other side of the pitch. Everything kind of gets thrown out of kilt. So, it's a mistake that you see fairly common, I think, that when you're playing on the unnatural side. So, it was unfortunate.
Well, the only thing I'd say is Jackson's more likely to be able to be able to play in that position than what Headley is.
Yeah.
Because he's a more solid fullback. Headley's a more get up and go and run forward fullback. So, I think, it's just unfortunate that I agree with you. If he were on the other side, he'd have turned away to the touchline and either played it out for a throw-in or tried to get the ball up the line.
Yeah. And I think, on the other side, I thought Headley actually dealt with Sakamoto quite well. Because I think he was, for Coventry, it was very much give it down the right-hand channel for most of the half, really, towards Sakamoto and see what he can kind of do to either beat the man or bring others into play. And I thought Headley dealt with it quite well.
He got booked early, but then he made sure that he didn't go in for any rash tackles. I think he was trying to get into him early, really, because we know with that sort of player, once he gets his first touch off, he's very good at running at fullbacks and twisting them inside out, really. So I thought Headley tried to play the right sort of idea tonight, but obviously he got a bit too close on
kick him in the stands.
One or two occasions, but he did well to hold back after that, and that's shown that he's learned because in previous games, he's not done that, and he has carried on trying to kick, the backside out of people, and that's not what you need to do.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And I mean, before we kind of talk about the goal quickly, because there wasn't much from that first half, I think Huddersfield I think their plan going into the game was see what they can kind of soak up and look to hit Coventry on the break. That's how it felt. And the first real moment of the first half actually fell to Karoma when I think Wiles stole it in the middle and kind of broke away. And Karoma had the chance, I think, to take the shot maybe a yard or two earlier. It would have been a bit more of a difficult chance to take, but I think that was probably, in hindsight, the right thing to do. Waited a little bit too long. Defender got back in front, but that was really the only chance Huddersfield had in the first half, wasn't it, I think?
Yeah, and to be fair to Cromer, he normally would have cut inside on that chance, but he didn't, and he took it with his weaker foot. And fair play to him, he sort of I agree, he could have taken it earlier. Wiles did well to win the ball back. I think he's going to be instrumental in the midfield for us. Yeah, I agree that I think we tried to soak up pressure, and then because of Bergzorg's pace and also Karoma's sort of industry and pace, we tried to make them on the break. But the problem was, because Coventry were playing in a very similar system to us, the two that were up there were always going against three centre-backs.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, you've got a very, very experienced centre back in McFadden. He might not be quick, but he reads the game, probably the best player on the pitch for reading the game in terms of where the balls are going to go. So and I've described Bergzorg as our new Colin Quanner. Nobody watching him knows what he's going to do, and he don't know what he's going to do. So it's quite good from McFadden to plan that ahead, really. So it was difficult for them up front. But like I said, the second half, which I know we'll come on to, because we got further up the pitch, it helped them for sure. Before Karoma went off.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair, and I think it's funny how moments change games, because it could very well have carried on the same way had the goal not have gone in. And I think, again, looking at it now in hindsight, that would have been a bad thing for Town, because I think if the first half had carried on in the second half, there'd have probably been only one winner in the game. So the goal kind of comes, obviously, it's lost ball from Jackson, and then Ellis Sims, who I've seen Coventry a couple of times this season. I was really disappointed with Ellis Sims, but I thought he was actually quite good tonight. I thought he ran the channels quite well. He showed a turn of pace, and it worked really well to even keep that one alive, really. Cut inside on his right foot. And it's one of them that kind of, when it comes back off the crossbar, it's like one of them that bounces down, hits the keeper on the back and goes in. Like, it's just so unfortunate. And it kind of felt a little bit like that. Like, the ball cannons back off the bar. And first you think, oh, that's offside. It's miles offside. You see that it wasn't. And then you think, well, he's definitely handled it. And he definitely didn't. So it was unfortunate. But like you said earlier, it was probably fair for the way the first half had kind of flowed, really.
Oh yeah, Coventry deserved their lead 100%. But the goal is unfortunate. It was a great strike by Ellis Sims, and it's a brilliant save by Lee Nichols to tip it onto the crossbar. But then it's just we never get stuff like that. By the way, I can't even remember the last time we had a shot that hit the crossbar and just fell to an attacker. Probably not happened since about 2009 when I started supporting the club. But
Harari knew nothing about it, did he?
No, he didn't.
He had no idea what had happened.
and he looked across at the linesman like,
he looked so guilty.
Yeah, but it was fair play. He kept on side, and like you say, he wasn't handball. But I agree that probably changed Darren Moore's game plan at half time, because I think we might have carried on with that way. What Darren's got to learn from this now is that, it's okay doing that, soaking up pressure away from home, particularly when we come to the better footballing side, Sunderland, you lot, Leicester, that sort of thing. But, you have to get on the front foot as well and actually create chances to win football games. And because we did that in the second half, that's the reason why we've got a magical point out of it.
Well, it's one of the oldest sayings, isn't it? Sometimes the best form of defense is attack. And there definitely is a certain amount of that makes complete sense, because while you're at one end of the pitch, you can't be susceptible to anything at the other. So it's okay soaking up. You've got very few teams throughout history that have actually won things doing it like that. You're talking about the elite of the elite, like a Jose Mourinho Chelsea side as an example, that are built on unbelievable defenders. The teams are not capable of doing that at this level. Not for 90 minutes anyway. You can do it for a period of time, because I did actually think Huddersfield defended quite well early on. First 25 minutes, I thought they defended fine. So
Nakayama had a good game. He's come back. I really like him. I think he's a superb centre back. Not the tallest, but plays the ball really well. Pearson, absolute. I don't care what people say that he might be a clogger, but he's our clogger, and he's a very good centre back. And Ehrlich, he's sort of like the Rolls Royce of our centre backs in a sense, where he comes out, breaks out of that defence, and can pass the ball forward. No messing at the back, an old school sort of centre back, as is Pearson really. So yeah, I agree with you that they did defend really well, and I thought, yeah, while Coventry deserved their lead, I also thought it was a bit harsh on the fact that because of the way we defended, to be honest. And Darren will take sort of comfort in that the back five, depending if you change Headley and Jackson, but the three there at the back, and when Tom Lees comes back in, and Nichols, it's a really solid sort of centre back setting with a goalkeeper, which is good for us. Just on Ellis Sims, I think the way Coventry play is very different now. Last season, we saw them moving the ball through the gears a lot further and a lot quicker. Gyökeres able to break through the lines and run those channels. That's not really Ellis Sims's game. And they had Harmer, of course, who could pick a pass and do a bit of magic and a bit of skill. And he had a great sort of partnership with Gyökeres. But Gordon and Ellis are going to have to sort of start playing a lot better for me if Coventry are going to move up the table. They've got some great players, but at the moment they're a bit like they're stuck really. They know how they want to play, but they've lost the two best players in that wheel that was so greased last season.
Yeah, they were massive for them, weren't they? And I think Jamie Allen's going to be massive for them. Getting him back fully fit, I think, he's a top player. I thought he's quite an underrated, understated Championship midfielder. I think he's a top player. He's got legs for days. I mean, he eats up ground. I thought he made a real difference when he came on. Actually, that's getting into the second half. He's a good player. So yeah, you mentioned Nakayama. I kind of picked him out, not as my man of the match, but I've never seen him play before. And I thought he played really, really well. I thought he read the game really, really well. I'd be interested to see how he would do in a back two as opposed to a back three, because you can straight away see that he suits playing as one of the either side of a centre back. It's all right when he's then got to run into the channel, but I can't imagine how he would fare up against some strikers in a back two when he's got to go up and win a lot of headers. But from what I saw today, I thought it was good.
He came as a centre-back / full-back, actually. So when he's played in the Japanese international team, and also he's played at his previous clubs, he has played as a sort of left-back in a sense, but a very defensive left-back. So, the centre-back of the three sort of really suits him. I also think it suits Pearson, really, in a sense, because he doesn't have to worry about being beaten by pace because he knows his mate Ellick will cover him. So I think as a back three, Darren Moore is fine with that, to be honest. The good thing about Nakayama is that he's very good on the ball, very composed. You never see him really get stressed. And he doesn't make a lot of mistakes. I think he's made one or two since he came to town. Been very unfortunate with injuries. Had a great start to last season in terms of his own performances, but then got the terrible injury and has been out sort of for 9-10 months and has started to come back. So I really like him. It's going to be a difficult choice between him and Tom Lees because Pearson and Ellick are not losing their places. And I think it'd be a bit harsh on Nakayama if he was just jumped straight out the side, but be interesting to see what Moore does and decides to do with Nakayama, because Tom Lees was one of the stalwarts and has been over the last sort of 12 to 16 months of this town team.
It's good to have options, though, isn't it? Like for Darren Moore taking over now, it's good to have them kind of selection headaches, I guess. Okay, so just before we do go on to the second half, if you are joining us either live tonight, get your comments in, let us know what you think of the result, the performance. And if you're watching us on catch up, drop your comments in. Going out live today on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and I believe going out on Spotify also nowadays. I'm led to believe by our Brownie.
Wow.
So yeah, coming into the second half, then, how do you think, or what do you think the message was from Darren Moore going into that second half? Like, something definitely needed to change if they were going to come back into the game. What do you think it'd have said?
Play higher up the pitch, play the thirds, that technical football term, and play the thirds, and and get stuck into them a little bit more. Don't be frightened of them. They've passed the ball about in the first half. They've done some nice moves. They've got a lucky goal. I don't think any of the other chances really deserved or warranted a second goal. So yeah, get into them and show them that we can come here and play football. And there was a massive difference after the first 5 minutes of the second half where, they were starting to pass the ball out from the back a bit more, get it into the midfield. Wiles and Radoni then got on the ball, which made Bergzorg and Karoma go out wide where they could receive the ball and cut in. And it made a big difference. And I just feel that he got the tactics right in the second half. I'm not saying he got it totally wrong in the first half, but we were effective. And he was good enough to see that. Some managers are just cracked on with the same old, what they'd done in the first half, but he saw it wasn't working and he decided to change it. And I think that shows that he's a manager that's not afraid to try and change things and obviously put an impression on the players that they can play. They've had a bit of a shock with Neil leaving. A lot of them probably didn't want Neil to leave. So, what we don't want is these players to go back into their old shell of, how they played before Neil turned up. And I think that's why probably you look at what the club said about the way Darren fits the data points, as it were, and the style and all that sort of thing, and the sort of players he can work with, and it's probably a good fit, really, looking at it, to be honest.
No, I think that's fair. I definitely think he would have wanted a little bit more urgency going into that second half. I think, while we recognise that Coventry are not a bad side, I think they probably showed him a little bit too much respect in that first half. And I think you're absolutely spot on. Within 5 minutes of the second half, you could see an instant change in the pace, the way that they were trying to move the ball in between the lines. There were a couple of chances early on. I made a couple of notes. Forget who it was now off the top of my head, but there were two chances early on in the second half that kind of set the tone for the second half.
Radoni had a chance where it was cut back, and
he played it straight to the keeper, didn't he?
Yeah, he sort of fluffed it, and Wiles left a ball that he should have taken on into the box, made the wrong decision there. And then there was that big chance where Karoma tried to flick the ball to sort of like the side of, I think it was Mavazdan, took a shot and it was well blocked. And there was a bit of a ruckus in the box. So there was a couple of chances, like you say, early on where, we had a good opportunities. And I just thought, there was at one point where we were getting corner after corner. And I just thought, Pearson was winning every single defensive header and couldn't win an attacking one. And I just thought, there's no way that we've got all these corners and we're not going to score from it or free kicks. And then, Thomas coming on was a big difference. I did think Sorba played well. Some corners were amazing, but others were really good deliveries, and that's what we've seen from him. And he's still a young player, still inconsistent, but made a difference tonight. So well played to the lad.
Yeah, that's fair. I think especially as the second half grew on, Radoni started to make a big difference. In them little bits of half spaces in between defence and midfield, he started to pick up the ball, started to drive at the back line. There was a moment where he, a bit of trickery, put it through, I forget who it was, one of the Coventry defenders' legs, and then went down. My instant reaction was dive. When I watched it back again, I didn't think it was a dive, but I also didn't think it was a penalty. Would you think that was fair?
Yeah, I shout a penalty, but then again, I'm biased.
You're gonna.
But I also take heed in the fact that he probably went down a little bit theatrically, and we never get anything off this referee anyway. So I knew straight away it wasn't going to be a penalty. So yeah, I agree that it wasn't the most blatant penalty in the world. I've seen referees give them, I've seen referees not give them, and tonight we didn't get it. So I'm not going to sit here and complain. Yeah, I maybe a bit more brutal if we hadn't got a last minute equaliser.
Definitely would have been different, mate. So
what did you make to Radoni?
I liked him. I thought second half, I thought he played really well. I think he's very heavy on his left foot. Carries just everything seems to come through it. But interestingly, was playing on the right side of the midfield three. But I thought he had a really good second half, mate. If I'm honest, I've seen him a couple of times, so it's not the first time I've ever seen him play.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought he was definitely instrumental in you getting back in that game second half.
As a midfield three, what do you make to Hogg, Wiles, and Radoni as a midfield three going forward?
I definitely think it's got legs. I like Wiles. I thought first half was really tenacious, nipping in, winning the ball back, and like we said on the Karoma chance, it all came from him reading the game in the midfield. I think when you're playing a midfield three, it's an interesting one because you've got a lot of responsibility, especially if your fullbacks are going forward. You've got to cover into them spaces. It's a tricky role to kind of play, and I think. I can imagine, I've not seen a Huddersfield game this season without Hogg, so I don't know, but I can imagine it's a totally different dynamic when you've got Wiles and Radoni with another one in there than it is with Wiles, Radoni and Hogg, because Hogg will cover that whole issue in behind them too. So if they do get caught out of position, he'll come across and sweep up in between them areas.
Yeah, we have Kasumu, who's a younger version of Hoggy, basically. Look, that both of them, they go into tackles like absolute madmen. But Kasumu gets injured quite a lot, so I think, having Hoggy there is always a mainstay anyway. But I think legs is the biggest thing in our midfield because I wouldn't say it's quality. But I would say it's legs and it's tenacity and energy, and particularly with Wiles now, he makes a difference to, Radoni's sort of got a bit of a playmate is the wrong word, but a partner in there that does the same sort of thing as him, where before he was having to do a lot of it. Radoni's grown over this season. He's really matured. I always liked him. You can ask Brownie and Chris my thoughts on Radoni from last season, but I've always had a real sort of liking to him. Really, I think he's come from Wimbledon, where he scored a lot of goals, and played that very centre attacking midfield role, and now he's having to play a very different role in a very different team, and he's grown into it, and I think he's matured a lot as a young. I think he's only like 22. So
I think he's definitely got potential. I definitely think you can see that he's more suited to a 10 role, or that's where his natural position maybe was, and he's now been asked to do a different job. Because he's, like I said, technically I think he's quite good. I think
Hoggy's a 6, obviously. Wiles is an 8, and then Radoni's the 10.
Yeah. I think definitely think you've got the building of something in there. I certainly think there'll be midfields in the division that are a lot worse off than them three.
It's interesting. We had a very similar midfield a couple of years ago under Chris Powell, where we had Hogg, Cody, and Jacob Butterfield. So basically, Hoggy is just the older Hoggy. Cody was the Wiles in terms of but maybe slightly more defensive. But he played as the Wiles role, and then you had Jacob Butterfield going forward. And that at the time, loads of Town fans thought, well, that's going to be our midfield for the next sort of 6-7 years. And then it
didn't work out like that, does it?
Didn't turn out like that way because we sold Cody within 2, and Butterfield didn't want to play for us after 3. So, and I think Hoggy's now glad that he's got 2 players in there that can run about a bit more for him as well. Bless him, he's 34, so he's not getting any younger.
Yeah, it gets more difficult, doesn't it? For sure. So moving on from the kind of, was it a penalty, wasn't it a penalty? I thought for the next period of the game there, I think that was at about 78, I thought for the next 10 minutes, Coventry grew back into the game again and took over a little bit. And then they had a few big chances. And we're coming to the man that we mentioned earlier who made a fantastic save from Ellison before it came back off the bar. Unfortunately for Town, went in. But Lee Nichols pulling off some save late into the game because, again, that goes in, it's 2-0, the game's done, it's over. So he's responsible, really, in one way or another of helping Huddersfield get a point today, because I thought that was a massive save. And then Hadji Wright, who I've got to say looks a little bit numb. It's a couple of times I've seen him now in the Championship this season. Big money from Turkish League, I believe. Scored a lot of goals over there last season to replace Gyökeres. Can't even start games at the moment. Puts it straight over the bar after the save from Nichols. I mean, I'm guessing your heart were in your mouth at that point.
Well, on the change on the 78th minute, I agree that Jamie Allen and the Coventry subs did make the difference. So I agree with. I think we obviously, we're not idiots. We can see that changed the game, but Town still attacked, and Coventry, because Town attacked, it gave Coventry a little bit more space, and because they brought fresh legs on, they could get up the pitch more, But the save from Lee Nichols, he's the best keeper in the division by far. He's that good. He has saved us more times than I've had at Optiners in terms of points that we've ever had. He made a save at West Brom. We go down the other end, we score a winner. He makes a save here tonight, and then we go down the other end, not within the same sort of move, but it's of the same importance, and we get a result tonight because of his save and then Hellick's goal. He's just a superb keeper. I mean, yes, he makes a few mistakes, and he has made some mistakes at the beginning of this season, but the into goalkeeper I'd swap for him. I mean, he's a shot stopper, he's a talker, he rollicks his defence when they're not doing what he wants them to do. He's all right with his feet. He's no qualms about coming and catching the ball. It don't matter if he hurts people. He's fine with that. There isn't a part to his game that I can see that's really massively bad for this division at all. I think he would suit a bottom half Premier League club. I think he's that good.
I think the truth is, Steve, I think all goalkeepers make mistakes. And I think, as you go further and further up the ladder, you see it less and less and less. But even the keepers that play for the best teams in the world, they don't make as many mistakes on the face of it, but they're also not dealing with as many opportunities and chances, on the regular. So you'll still see an Edison or an Allison make a mistake, or whoever your top goalkeeper is. So I think that happens. Players make mistakes all game, but when a goalkeeper makes a mistake, it's very obvious and usually it ends up in a goal. So again, they're just critiqued differently. So I think you're absolutely spot on to kind of stand by a keeper even after they make one or two mistakes, even if it's in quick succession. I saw the save that he made earlier on this season against West Brom. I mean, it was just ridiculous, really. And then
it's a world-class save.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely.
And tonight's he's made two world-class saves tonight. I mean, the first one in the first half, he should have no right to get to that ball to save it onto the crossbar. Yes, despite the goal. The second one in the second half, it's from point blank range. I don't understand how the guy's not scored. And then for Wright, like you said, to come in, I mean, he just fluffed his lines all together, didn't he?
Yeah.
But he made a mistake against Leicester, and he came out after the game and he said that he shouldn't have let that in. Which fair play, he's critical of himself. But I think there was a lot of talk at the summer. Warnock came out and said that there was a lot of talk saying that, other clubs were in for him, and, his agent might have been trying to twist his head and all this rubbish. But, if he keeps playing and he keeps consistently being the top keeper in the league for a team that isn't supposed to be challenging up anywhere near the top of the division, then he's going to get his move eventually, isn't he?
How old is he?
He's like 27, I think.
Yeah, good. So coming into his prime then, really, as a keeper as well, isn't he?
But you have to remember that we got him from MK Dons for £100,000 because he was second choice keeper at MK Dons. Keepers are just weird, aren't they?
They
are. You don't buy a keeper. Well, very rarely that you go out and you buy a keeper for a lot of money. Unless you are
again the big ones do, but that's it.
Arsenal Football Club, that pays 40 million for a keeper.
We played Hull last week, and they had Allsop making his debut, and it was unbelievable. And again, he's just a run of the mill kind of football league keeper, really. That has now found a move to Hull, and keepers can often be late bloomers as well, can't they? Like they'll come out of nowhere, sometimes even early 30s, and start playing week in, week out. So no, I thought it was excellent. It was a great, it's a huge moment for Town, was that. And then obviously the ball breaks. It wasn't directly from then, I don't think. I think there was a couple of passages of play after that ball kept on going out down the side. I mean, Coventry must be, I mean, Mark Robbins was going absolutely ballistic on it with the way that the goal was scored, because it was I'm not going to say easy, but the way that Town got in down that right-hand side, Radoni played it down the line to Thomas. It was all a bit too easy at that point, and then Coventry started kind of desperately defending, finds its way across the 6-yard box to Bielik, who I think does to Helic, who does extremely well to open up his body and stick it in the top corner.
Well, he just guides it, doesn't he? There's no power in his leg at all there. It's just a little guide of the ball into the top corner. And, for a centre-half who you don't really expect to score goals bar his heading ability, I thought it was a tremendous finish. If I were Darren Moore, I'd be asking why he was in that position. But then again, I wouldn't be caring, really.
I did think that myself, actually, because it weren't from a set piece or anything like that. He just found himself on the penalty spot.
But if you watch it back, I'm sure from memory, I'll have to watch it back, but it comes from Pearson plays it back to Lee Nichols, long ball up the top. Radoni takes it down in midfield, plays it to Thomas. But as Radoni spins and plays it to Thomas, you can just see Helic running into the box like an absolute madman. And then obviously the ball came to him and he did what he did. But huge point. I mean, I thought we deserved a point really in the end. I thought we played, second half, because of how we played, we deserved the point. And it's nice for Darren not to lose his first game. Nobody wants to see a new manager lose your first game, do you? So I think he can take...
Sorry, go on.
I just think he can take a lot of insight from the match and help his decision-making moving forward. And he'll have, full training ground week now with the players before we go into what is, I think, on paper, the toughest match against Ipswich Football Club at the moment.
Good side. Not many teams go to Portman Road and win, Steve. I'm just going to say that.
we're at home, so...
Still a tough game. They're a good side.
If we go to Portman Road, there won't be a match taking place.
You're definitely going to be losing. You're taking my train of thought away now. I forgot what we were going to say. No, it's gone. It's gone. You know what I was going to say in terms of the result. We was texting at half time, and you were very much a case of that were really crap, and I were very much of a kind of feeling that there weren't really much in the game. I'd say Coventry probably edged the first half, but the way that the goal came about, I don't think there were really much in it. And I think out of the second half, I think, if it were to be won on points like a boxing match, well, I think Huddersfield probably nicked the second half. So
I think, I think if that were Leeds, though, I think you'd have been raging, wouldn't you? Surely we 14 touches between your front two and an XG of 0.3 or whatever it was.
Sure. No, 100%. And I mean, I think, like I said earlier, I think you guys going away to Coventry, you probably showed them a little bit too much respect in the first half. And I think that was the difference, really. But you're right. Especially as a fan, it kind of puts you back up when, like you say, your attackers are only having 14 touches between them in that first half. But on the face of it, there weren't much between the two teams, really. And I think you're right. I think coming out from the game, I think a point was fair. I think they'll be absolutely kicking themselves, given the chances that they did have to wrap the game up and how late into the game it was. But I think overall, I think a share of the spoils was probably.
Robbins will be raging. Robbins will have gone into the dressing room and absolutely stripped the paint off him, because there's no way I fully believe that within the last, when it got to that 78th minute, 79th minute where they got back into it, I bet Robbins is sitting there on the bench thinking, we've got this now. I've made the changes. I've got us back in the game. The players that have come on have made a big difference. There's no way we're losing this. And then, but I think there was a graphic on Sky. They are the highest team to concede in the last 10 minutes of games. Yeah. Which is, I think it's like they've lost 7 points now, or well, it'll be higher now.
No, it'll be, I think it was 5 points. Won it 5 points before today, so it'll be 7 points now. Or it's 7 points before.
Yeah, 7 points before, and so it'll have gone to 9 points. They've lost this season already from winning positions.
I mean, where would you expect Coventry to kind of finish up this season?
I can't remember where I had them in my pre-season predictions, but I'm sure I had them around the playoffs. But unless Ellis Sims gets firing, and Godden, I know he's scored 7 goals already, but if they don't start scoring goals and not conceding late goals to drop points, then I can't see him above 10th. I'm honest.
I think that obviously selling Gyökeres is one thing, but I think selling him has kind of gone under the radar a little bit because I think he was probably the best centre midfielder in the Championship last season. And then you also have Doyle at the back, who's now at Leicester on loan.
Yeah.
They lost the whole spine of the team there, 3 massive players. So I think if they're top half, I think they do well, personally.
Well, the drop-off is Coventry and obviously Middlesbrough. But then that's been replaced by, your Birmingham and Preston, which is interesting. The Championship's brilliant, isn't it? You just never...
you never can predict it.
I mean, you called it that you didn't think Coventry were going to do as well, which is, I think you got that spot on, and you did say that about Borough, so I've got to give you that.
I like to think I know my football a little bit.
Yeah, no, but you saw it, to be fair to you. I mean, I thought there would be a drop-off with Coventry just because of what happened in the playoff final. A team like Coventry, and doesn't really bounce back well from a defeat like that, really. And then, with them losing Gyökeres and Hamer, it was always going to be difficult. But I expected them to be a little bit better. They have spent money. It's not like they've done a town and not spent and sold the best players and then not brought anybody in. So
they spent quite a lot of money on Van Uwijk, didn't they? Dutch fullback. Were he even in the squad tonight? I didn't look at the bench.
No.
I know lots expected of him. I think the Championship's one of them, and especially when you've got like the reason that I said that Middlesbrough would struggle this season. They were coming off of the back of pretty bad form at the end of last season anyway. If you actually look into it, they didn't finish the season particularly well. You then have to deal with losing in the playoffs, which is another headache to overcome. You then take out Chukwuemeka and Cameron Archer from any Championship side, and you're going to see a drop off. And I just think all them kind of things combined together with, actually how good is Michael Carrick, because we don't really know, half a season when you're buoying the players up and it's us against the world and all that, because it makes a massive difference. Like, I've been in management and it makes a big difference when you've got that momentum, but eventually that dies down and you're left with just hot noise. So if the tactics are then not left there, you get found out. And I think that's a combination of what's happening in the Championship. Like, if you've got players that are just that cut above, you have one opportunity to get it right. And if you don't, they're going to move on. And that's what's happened to Borough and Coventry, really. Like, them players that we've just all spoke about, they're just a cut above the league. So, yeah, that's my rationale.
But I do find the division... I thought it was going to be... I still think it is the best and the toughest division that's been in the Championship for a while. And I think overall we'll be okay, because Rotherham were absolutely atrocious when it came to us. They can't describe how bad they were. You'll have an absolute field day when you play them, or you should do anyway. Your front four, because the movement there, my God, I've seen beer battles move quicker in pubs. But disappointing. I've watched Friday night football the other night, Stoke, or was it Sunday when the game was on? Can't remember. I watched the Stoke game, and again they were just... I'm just surprised at Stoke, really, because I thought with them buying, they spent a lot of money. The owners have gone for it a bit this year, but it's just not happening for them at all.
I've been really keen to not discuss Leeds tonight because it's specifically a review.
I don't mind discussing it.
We'll just touch on it quickly because, like, I think in my head I'm a little bit guilty of it being the Championship that I remember from before this season. So 3 years ago, what we were in that division, the effects of parachute payments and the players that you bring down and all the rest of it. And I was very much a case of, we're just going to slot back into that grind. But after watching us for the last 4 or 5 games now, there's a massive gulf in quality between the players that I think we've got and Leicester and some of the division. Like Hull and Millwall especially are considered to probably be in and around playoffs this season. And we made both of them look so ordinary. And I know we didn't come out with the 3 points against Hull. We played 30 minutes of the game with 10 men. But there's a huge gulf in between some of these teams, and I see it more and more, and I understand it more and more. And I mean, I think Leicester, given the head start that they've got, I think they'll win the league. And I think
I had Leicester to win the league. The biggest surprise, not necessarily because of the manager, because I don't rate him, but I thought the Southampton squad at the beginning of the season was probably the second best.
I said Southampton to win the league.
Yeah, because when we were chatting, you to be fair to you weren't confident. But I think your front four now is probably bar Leicester is the best in the division. I think the way that you can rip teams to bits with your movement, your pace, your trickery. You've got people to come off the bench now. So I'd be if I were you, I'd be disappointed if I want, getting third, maybe even pushing second now, to be honest.
I think that's how a lot of Leeds fans are starting to feel. I think they're starting to look upon the top two and expect Preston to probably drop off. Ipswich, recently promoted team. I think Ipswich will be up there all season. I think they'll probably finish. Well, I think they will finish top six.
Preston will get caught with the old December, January schedule. Can't handle it. They'll get injuries unless they do an us and they do an absolute miracle season. I mean, they do happen. To be fair,
they do.
But it's rare. But I think the Championship's always been a slog, hasn't it? So it has always been a grind, and you get a lot of the teams that are the same. But because it's such a mad division. And as we've seen, Norwich, results that they've had, crazy results. Plymouth, it's just a mad division, and you can never predict it. You just, you getting results against Holland, like you say, Millwall, you've played well against, and you expect to get results against, but that's why you can't predict it. It's the best division in the world. I don't care what people say.
It is funny because, like, now that we're starting to win games again after 2 years of not winning really at all, I'm actually become quite okay with what happened last season, because, like, as much as it's obviously the end goal of where to be is the Premier League, the Championship is so much more fun. It just is so much more fun to watch and be a part of, especially when you feel like every game you go into is winnable.
I love our WhatsApp group, but I hate it at the same time. And I also hate the fact that your hackers keep coming off and mine don't. But there we go.
Oh man, I was so close at the weekend as well. I had Luton as part of a 3 for 70 quid. It was really unlucky.
Interestingly, the three teams that will come down, I think definitely will be the three that went up. But I think Sheffield United will be such in a state when they come. They could drop again. That's how bad they are. Luton, I think, will come back down, but I don't think they'll go back up, because I don't think they've got the. I don't know. I've just got a feeling about Luton that they'll do that thing what you've just said about slotting back into the grind.
Yeah. I think what Luton have done with their recruitment has been quite clever as well. They understand where they are, and they've recruited to be a top Championship team when they come back down, or try and compete for playoffs again. They've got to be realistic. There's such a huge gulf, and they're seeing that they're all seeing it. Even Burnley, who I think were probably the best equipped out of the three, they might be able to stand a fighting chance. But once Everton, who are now picking up results, Forest, I thought they'd be right in the thick of it. They're still picking up results. I don't see who would replace one of the three of them right now. Bournemouth maybe. Yeah, Bournemouth maybe. But
it's about time Bournemouth came back down.
It's always about time they come back down, isn't it?
It's one of them clubs that you think, right, you've had a nice little party in there for 7 years.
You've had your time.
You can come back down now. You can be a Swansea or a, Cardiff or something, But I love the Championship.
Yeah, it's good fun. It's good fun. I don't want to get too used to it, but it's good fun. To start towards wrapping up, Steve, because obviously it is late. Going on to the weekend, so you got Ipswich at home.
Yeah,
very, very tough game. How do you see Darren setting up for that one at home?
I think because of the nature of Ipswich, I think he'll have to go quite like he did, or try and go in the first half and soak up a lot of pressure, even though we're at home. It's a very tough game. I think it's the hardest game on paper. Leicester, depends how they play. You guys, depends whether you turn up. But I think Ipswich, I don't know. I just get the feeling that there's just something magical happening there at the moment. And he's such a good manager. He should be. If he don't manage in the top division in the next 2 years, there's something wrong in this country.
He's had some story, hasn't he? I don't know if you know his backdrop, Kieran McKenna, but he came through at Spurs, got like a career-ending injury at about 2021. And he was on the Manchester United coaching staff at 23, 24 or something.
Worked with Mourinho, didn't he?
Yeah, worked with Mourinho.
Yeah.
Ended up caretaker manager, didn't he, for a couple of games before Solskjaer, I think. Really young. I'm sure he did. Maybe no.
It was Carrick, wasn't it?
Not Carrick. No, not because Carrick did have a couple of games. Anyway, his story is unbelievable because of when he had to kind of retire and give up playing, and go to then drop down to League One and do what he's done. And he's I think he's quite unassuming. He just goes about his business. He's not one of these. Not
brash, is he?
No, he's not brash or anything. He just says it as it is, and his style of football and the way that he's got Ipswich playing is impressive. And he's got some good players there as well, though. There's some top players.
It's going to be very tough. I don't expect to get anything, but I don't think that's a disappointment against Ipswich because of the team they are and the way they're playing. I hope that we can get a result. I thought the game tonight was more appropriate that we got a point. Against a Coventry side that, although they're good, they are beatable. Where Ipswich, I'm not saying the Barcelona or anything, don't get me wrong, and anything can happen in the Championship, but I'd like to think that, we can get something, but I'm not hopeful. But that's just the way that, the cookie crumbles at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, they're a team.
I'm being realistic. I
think it's fine. Again, I think at the beginning of the season, even Ipswich, Ipswich were called by a lot to potentially upset some of the bigger teams this season, probably finish top 6. That wasn't just fans. That was, social media, Sky Sports, whoever were picking it up, were saying that they'd been in and around it. And I think inside the dressing room, they would have been saying the same thing as well. So I think their expectations are certainly top 6. So I think that's a fair kind of reflection. I think if Huddersfield can come away with anything from that, even at home, I think it'd be a good result. Be a good result on the board. Yeah. So okay, finish off then. Your expectations for Darren Moore for the rest of the season. What would you be your hope?
Well, it's just to. I mean, the ultimate goal is obviously to survive. But I think when it comes to January, it'd be interesting to see if he can bring some players in. I think we've just got to get through to January first. I think that's the big thing. But if we can just get to like 14th in the league, 13th, I'll be happy with that. That'll suit. I've said that at the beginning of the season under Warnock, so it's not going to change. Under Moore, and then build for next season and see what he wants to do, players he wants to bring in, and how he wants to move the club forward. But he's got to be back. That's the thing. They've put themselves on the line with this appointment. Yeah. They've got rid of arguably the best Championship managers there's ever been, one of the most respected and loved, and a hero at the club that 99% of Town fans didn't want to leave. So I'm not saying that, people can have their opinion on Moore and whatever, and he's a nice guy, but the club has got to back him properly moving forward. And that is what I want to see. But for Darren, if we just survive and hopefully he can move us forward, I think that would be, that's this season really.
I think it's a perfect job for him, Steve. I really do. Like, I think he was unfairly treated at West Brom. I thought he did an all right job at West Brom, considering the circumstances off the pitch. We've seen some of the managers that have come in afterwards and struggled. They've got a lot of playing staff that didn't want to be there, and he still had them in and around the top 2 in the playoffs when he got sacked. He then obviously took
fourth. He was fourth.
Yeah, it was right fourth up there with other than Sheffield United. I remember it clearly.
He was fourth with 10 games to go.
It's wild. And then he obviously took a sinking ship down in Sheffield Wednesday, wasn't responsible for the relegation. He took them to a record points finish that didn't result in automatic promotion. He then showed some real stones and character to come back from that first leg of the playoffs where, they were dead and buried. They were completely and utterly out of that. And he managed to galvanize that team somehow to come back and, win that tie and then win a playoff final with an owner like that guy. So
yeah, well, you just look at his record, like you say. I know you've just been through it, but West Brom, he got sacked when he was 4th up 10 points. He then went to Doncaster during COVID, and they could have gone up on points per tally. In the first year, second year he got them in the playoffs and they failed. But for a club like Doncaster, that was a great achievement in that division. Then he went to Sheffield Wednesday. He didn't. The only reason I think he could have saved them. But the reason he didn't is because if you remember, he had an illness. I think he had he was out for like 6 games or 5 games or something in hospital. Came back and they only went down, I think, by 3-4 points.
Yeah.
So he could have saved them if he were there, but unfortunately he was ill, and I think he would have saved them probably. And then second season, obviously, he got them into the playoffs on 85 points, and lost the playoff semi-final against a good side, against Sunderland side that were expected to go up. A bit like when we were back in League One, when Millwall went up, they were ready to go up with Sunderland, so he lost to a good Sunderland side. And then last season, he were obviously record points total, and he was unlucky that he didn't get the top 2 in any other season in the last 25 years in League One. He would have won the league, but he didn't win the league. And, whilst I disagreed that they deserved to go up in the playoff final, because I thought Barnsley were the better side and treated absolutely horrendously by the officials, he did get them up. Interestingly, if he hadn't have won that playoff final, I don't know if he'd have got a championship job. But
maybe
these are the sliding doors moments that we'll never know.
Yeah, maybe. And I think now, he can put some roots down at Town. And I think Town will be patient with him, and I think he'll be able to build something. We spoke a little bit off air about, what your plans and hopes are for the club in terms of building and growing and having a plan. I think out of the available managers that suit Championship football, I think he's what you would want. You know my opinions on Darren Moore. We spoke about him before pre-season. I'm not saying he was the right choice for Leeds, but I wouldn't have been like, this is an horrendous choice if it had been given the Leeds job. So I think it makes a lot of sense.
I think if you hadn't got Farke, the way you were talking, more were like your second choice, really.
I would have probably said so, yeah. I would have probably said so. And I know that wouldn't have been the case for a lot of Leeds fans, but I see it for what it is. On paper, so.
And he's a nice guy. It's nice to see
He is a top guy. He's a very nice guy. Right, my friend. Been really good catching up with you. We've done nearly an hour. Thank you so much for anybody that has listened and picking it up secondhand, either on whatever platform you've been watching on YouTube, Spotify, or Facebook. And Steve, thank you so much for joining me, chatting all things Huddersfield. At least you got a point on the board tonight.
Yeah. Cheers for hosting, Jay. I know that this has probably been a hellish hour for you, but it's nice to talk. Do a first match reaction for Town. Obviously, I'm normally at the games and whatnot, so I can't really do them. But it's been nice to come on tonight to do some Town chat. So we'll be back on the podcast. Me, Jay, Brownie, and Chris, and Lou, and the rest of them very shortly.
We should be back on Wednesday for a Football League review, so we hope to see you all then. We'll talk Huddersfield, we'll talk Leeds, we'll talk Bradford City as well. Thanks once again, Steve, and thank you all for watching.